What if there was a divine being hidden in plain sight, mentioned only in whispers across the Bible and secret scrolls? Could one mysterious figure hold the key to unlocking the bridge between God and man, time and eternity? In a world full of noise and confusion, there are rare moments when ancient truths quietly call out to our soul. This is one of those moments. Some knowledge is not forgotten, it's just waiting to be remembered. If you've ever felt like there's more to life than what we see, if you've sensed that truth is hidden in symbols, stories, and ancient scrolls, then you belong here with us. Subscribe now and join our journey into the forgotten chapters of human consciousness. The name Melchizedek appears only briefly in the Bible, but what if I told you that within those few verses lies one of the greatest spiritual mysteries of all time? In Genesis 14, a strange encounter takes place. Abraham, still called Abram, returns victorious from battle, and out of nowhere, a priest king appears. He is not introduced, he is not explained, he simply is. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. Bread and wine. A priest before the Levitical order, a king from a city that doesn't exist on any map. Melchizedek blesses Abram and then he vanishes. No genealogy, no origin, no death. He appears like a ghost in the story of the patriarchs and disappears just as quickly. But the question that haunts theologians, mystics, and seekers for centuries is this: who or what was Melchizedek? Centuries later, in the Psalms of David, his name resurfaces. You are a priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. Wait forever. What order is this? How can a priesthood exist outside the temple, beyond time, beyond bloodline? To understand the impact of this figure, we must move beyond the pages of Scripture and into the hidden corridors of mysticism, where Melchizedek becomes something more than a priest or king. He becomes a cosmic archetype, a divine emissary, the embodiment of an eternal truth too powerful to be made common. And maybe, just maybe, you felt it too. That longing for something ancient, that sense that you've heard this name before, not with your ears, but in dreams, or in moments of silence when the universe seems to whisper. Melchizedek isn't just a name, he's a door. And the further we walk through it, the more we begin to realize it. This story isn't just about him, it's about us. But what if Melchizedek wasn't an isolated anomaly? What if the religious texts, both open and forbidden, have been pointing to something all along? In the Torah, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in mystical Jewish Kabbalah, and even the Gnostic Gospels, his presence lingers. And to uncover the truth about him, we have to look deeper into the sacred texts that dared to speak his name. Despite his silence in history, Melchizedek echoes across time through sacred texts, each one painting a slightly different, yet strangely consistent picture. In the Hebrew Bible, he is a footnote, yet a footnote that leaves a fingerprint on the divine. In the book of Psalms, he is the eternal priest. In the letter to the Hebrews, he becomes something transcendent, greater than Abraham, and outside the laws of men. What kind of priest exists outside lineage? What kind of figure offers bread and wine before Christianity was even born? The Epistle to the Hebrews, likely written by someone deeply versed in mystical Judaism, brings Melchizedek back from obscurity and places him at the center of cosmic theology. Without father or mother, without genealogy, without beginning of days or end of life, he remains a priest forever. This isn't metaphor, this is identity. The writer wasn't just describing a holy man. He was describing a being unbound by time, someone who steps into the timeline, performs a sacred act, and disappears like light folding into itself. It's no coincidence that Melchizedek's offering mirrors the Last Supper. Bread and wine, two elements used throughout ancient traditions, symbolizing the body and blood, but also matter and spirit. To Abraham, Melchizedek represents the recognition of divine authority. To David, he is the model of eternal priesthood. To early Christians, He becomes a template for Christ himself, the one who comes from beyond time and reconciles heaven and earth. But it's in the mystical texts, the ones buried, banned, and barely translated, where the true depth begins to emerge. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, one manuscript simply titled 1113 refers to a heavenly figure known as Melchizedek, not just a priest or king, but an angelic being, a judge of souls, a bringer of divine justice. Here Melchizedek is described not as a servant of God, but as a manifestation of God's power. In some texts, he is equated with Michael, the archangel of warfare and righteousness. In others, with the mysterious figure of Metatron, the voice of the divine itself. This isn't just interpretation, it's transformation. Melchizedek evolves into something vast, something cosmic, something eternal. And yet, every appearance of Melchizedek is quiet, subtle. There are no burning bushes, no parting seas. Only quiet moments of recognition of alignment between soul and cosmos. It's in those quiet moments that truth hides. The Torah may mention him once. The Psalms may invoke his priesthood. The Gospels may echo his mystery. But beneath the surface of it all, Melchizedek is something far more potent, a bridge between spiritual traditions, a constant between shifting dogmas, a symbol of priesthood that predates religion itself. But if Melchizedek is more than a man, more than a priest, more than a king, then who are the ones who carry his legacy? What is the order of Melchizedek? And why does its trail lead into the very heart of mystical teachings and esoteric brotherhoods, from Kabbalistic circles to secret Hermetic schools? To answer that, we must enter the realm of the hidden priesthood, an order that claims no temple and yet influences all. A tradition whispered through alchemical texts, guarded by mystics, and still alive in the spiritual seekers of today. The Gnostics saw the world differently. To them, reality wasn't just physical. It was layered, veiled, and built on unseen patterns. They believed in hidden realms, divine sparks trapped in flesh, and a secret knowledge, gnosis, that could set the soul free. So when they encountered the name Melchizedek, they didn't see a historical priest. They saw a cosmic mystery. In Gnostic texts like the Nag Hammadi library, Melchizedek is not just a figure, he is a manifestation of divine consciousness. A being that exists in the realm of the paroma, the fullness of divine reality, far beyond the flawed material world. In one text simply titled Melchizedek, he is described as the great high priest of the light, the one who stands in the presence of the eons. He isn't born. He doesn't die. He serves the Most High not by sacrifice, but by knowing. This knowledge isn't academic. It's spiritual DNA, a memory of our origin beyond the stars. To the Gnostics, Melchizedek wasn't sent to start a religion. He came to remind us of what we already are. Some Gnostic sects believed he was a pre-incarnate form of Christ, or even a reflection of the Logos, the divine word that spoke creation into being. But he was also something more personal, a mirror, a reflection of the true self, the divine self, waiting to be awakened within every soul. In these texts, he appears between dimensions, moving silently between heaven and earth, speaking words that sound like riddles but ring true in the quiet corners of the soul. He teaches through paradox. To know is to remember. To ascend is to descend. To become divine, you must first realize you already are. These are not teachings you memorize. They are truths you feel deep in the marrow of your being. So who receives these teachings? Not the powerful, not the religious elite, but the seekers, the broken-hearted, the restless souls, those who look at the stars and wonder where home really is. To them, Melchizedek becomes a guide, a light in the cave, a voice beyond the veil, not loud, not forceful, but unmistakable. And this is where his role shifts from priest to archetype. He becomes not just someone to study, but someone to embody. In the Gnostic worldview, spiritual figures are not meant to be worshipped. They are meant to be awakened within us. Melchizedek, then, becomes a blueprint for the spiritually awakened human, a being in full alignment with divine will, beyond law, beyond ritual, beyond identity. This vision may feel unfamiliar, even heretical to traditional religious thought. But it's rooted in something timeless, the idea that we are not separate from the divine, but temporarily asleep. And that figures like Melchizedek are not exceptions to the rule, they are reminders of what the rule truly is. In this way, Melchizedek stands shoulder to shoulder with other great archetypes of Gnosis, Thoth, Enoch, Sophia, even the Christ. He is the silent teacher, the invisible priest, the voice that speaks only when you're ready to listen. And if you're still watching this far, maybe, just maybe you're starting to hear it too. But what happened to Melchizedek's order? Did it vanish with the scrolls? Or did it continue underground within spiritual brotherhoods, hermetic traditions, and secret initiations passed down through the ages? To find that answer, we must turn to those who still claim to carry his flame. In the silence that follows true knowledge, something always remains a resonance, a frequency that echoes beyond the teachings themselves. And that's exactly what happened with Melchizedek. He disappeared from the pages, but his presence expanded across the hidden spiritual landscape of human history. The Order of Melchizedek is not an official institution. It doesn't wear robes, it doesn't claim land. It is instead a current, a flow of wisdom that passes quietly through teachers, mystics, scribes, and seekers. Those who carried this current were never mainstream. They lived in caves, walked deserts, built hidden libraries beneath ancient cities. They didn't preach. They practiced. They remembered. In the Zohar, the foundational mystical text of Kabbalah, Melchizedek is called the righteous king, a being who blesses not just individuals, but generations. He is a figure who bridges the Sephirot, the divine emanations of the tree of life, bringing balance between mercy and judgment, spirit and flesh. This aligns perfectly with Hermetic principles, where the divine human becomes the microcosm of the macrocosm. Melchizedek's order, then, is not a group, it's a template for spiritual wholeness. In early Christian mysticism, especially among the Essenes and Gnostic sects, the Order of Melchizedek was believed to survive underground, encoded in symbols, taught through silence. They believed that anyone who achieved inner unity, who integrated their soul, spirit, and mind would be inducted into this order naturally. There were no ceremonies, only transformations, and that initiation didn't come from another person, it came from within. Later, Hermetic alchemists and Rosicrucians referenced the priesthood of Melchizedek in their encrypted writings. To them, Melchizedek represented the inner philosopher, king, the master of opposites, sulfur and mercury, sun and moon, spirit and matter. Melchizedek didn't just represent divine authority, he represented the union of all opposites, the dissolving of duality. Even in modern metaphysical teachings, references to the Order of Melchizedek still surface. Some spiritual circles describe it as a frequency and energy signature that certain souls resonate with when they are ready to live in service of light, truth, and universal harmony, not chosen by bloodline, not appointed by church, but awakened by inner realization. Think about that for a moment. What if there are people walking among us today carrying the light of Melchizedek in their daily lives? Not through preaching or ritual, but through presence. Through the way they speak truth in silency or radiate peace in chows. This is the living order, the invisible lineage. And once you sense it, once it calls to you, it never leaves you the same. In this way, Melchizedek's story isn't a chapter from the past. It's a current pulling forward, calling those who remember what they've always been. The Order of Light is not hidden because it's forbidden. It's hidden because it must be felt before it can be understood. And that's why it survives. Because no one can destroy what is passed from to soul in silence, in stillness, in the sacred. But the deeper you go, the more layered it becomes. Was Melchizedek a priest, a king, an angel, or something else entirely? Some say he wasn't a figure at all, but a principle of consciousness, one that can incarnate, speak, teach, and vanish again. To understand this, we must look at the mythical theories, the esoteric philosophies, that don't just interpret Melchizedek. They reveal his true origin. There are some truths that cannot be proven, only remembered. As we move deeper into the mystery of Melchizedek, we leave behind history and enter mythical space, a place where logic dissolves and symbolic truth takes its place. Because the more you study Melchizedek, the more you begin to wonder, was he ever a man at all? Some ancient mystical traditions, particularly in early Christian and Jewish Kabbalistic circles, began to speak of Melchizedek as something beyond flesh and bone. He wasn't just a spiritual teacher. He was consciousness itself, taking shape in moments of divine need. In the Zohar, some rabbis taught that Melchizedek was Shem, the son of Noah, righteous soul who lived long enough to anoint Abraham. Others disagreed, saying Shem was still bound by lineage, while Melchizedek was outside of time. In Gnostic texts, he is not of this earth but a being of light, descending from the heavenly realms, neither created nor born. This mirrors Eastern concepts like the Bodhisattva, awakened beings who incarnate again and again to guide humanity through spiritual evolution. And in this view, Melchizedek becomes something far more than a man or myth. He becomes a principle of divine order, a force that appears whenever the balance between light and darkness must be restored. Could it be that Melchizedek has appeared in many forms? That throughout time he has taken on many names, spoken through many mouths. Thoth in ancient Egypt, Zoroaster in Persia, Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica, even Enoch in later Christ. Figures who didn't just teach but embodied divine presence. Figures who arrived not to start religions, but to remind us of the sacred geometry of our own being. Mystical theorists often point to patterns, repeating symbols, recurring motifs, similar teachings, all attributed to different sages across time. Could Melchizedek be part of that pattern? Not a person, but a frequency, a divine template that manifests when humanity is ready for a new alignment. If so, then his appearance to Abraham was not random. It was a signal, a turning point in human spiritual evolution. The bread and wine, symbols of alchemy, of balance, of integration. The lack of origin or death, clues that he exists beyond our dimension of cause and effect. His silence, an invitation to listen with the heart, not the ears. Everything about Melchizedek points not to doctrine, but to awakening. Not in churches, not in temples, but in the quiet cathedral of the soul. And that changes everything, because it means this story is still happening, not in the past, but now, right here, right inside you. If Melchizedek is more than a figure, if he is a living idea, a divine signature, then the next question becomes, what happens when you tune into that frequency, when you begin to live from that place of sacred remembrance? This is the true esoteric path, not to follow Melchizedek, but to become him, to embody balance, to radiate truth, to serve not for power but for the light. And that brings us to today. Because if Melchizedek is eternal, if his essence can still be felt, then where is it now? Who carries it? And how can we in this modern, chaotic world reconnect with that timeless priesthood? That's where we turn next, to the modern echoes of Melchizedek, and how his legacy still breathes in the hearts of spiritual seekers across the planet. In a world drowning in noise, true wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. And perhaps that's why Melchizedek is still here, not in the headlines, not in temples, but in the quiet stirrings of the awakened soul. Modern mystics, energy workers, spiritual teachers, many speak of a new consciousness rising. They describe it in different ways: 5D awakening, Christ consciousness, quantum awareness. But at the center of it all is the same ancient thread: a return to divine balance, to living in alignment with truth, compassion, service, not as religion, but as a state of being. And for those who resonate with this path, the spirit of Melchizedek feels oddly familiar. Across online teachings, retreats, channeled messages, and inner journeys, the name keeps surfacing: Melchizedek, the Order of Light, the Eternal Priesthood. Some say he communicates in dreams, others in moments of stillness, intuition, or synchronicity. You're not told, you remember, like an ancient melody that's always been playing in the background. You just now started to hear it. Spiritual psychology calls this spontaneous recognition, that unexplainable sense of familiarity when you encounter certain symbols, words, or beings. It's not fantasy. It's not wishful thinking. It's a form of soul memory. And when you feel it, something changes. You're no longer searching outside. You begin to turn inward, because you realize, perhaps for the first time, the temple was never out there. It was always within. This is what the modern expression of the Melchizedek path looks like. Not robes or rituals, but integrity. Not sermons, but service. Not power, but presence. It lives in quiet acts of love, in choices aligned with truth, in courage to live a different kind of life, one ruled not by ego, but by essence. You don't need to join the Order of Melchizedek. If this resonates with you, you're already part of it. Because this order doesn't choose members. It awakens them. It remembers them. Think about that. Maybe this wasn't just a video. Maybe it was a call, one you've heard before, in a deeper part of yourself. A reminder of the light you carry, the truth you already know, the connection that can never be broken, only forgotten, and now remembered. So what happens next? That's up to you. But one thing is certain: once you hear the call, you cannot unhear it. Melchizedek was never the end of a story. He was always the beginning. A symbol, a frequency, a doorway, and you've just stepped through it. The path has always been there. You just didn't know it had your name on it. If you felt something stir within you during this journey, if even a small part of this message resonated deep in your spirit, then this wasn't just another video. It was a conversation, a recognition, a remembering. We'd love to hear what spoke to you most. Share your thoughts, reflections, or even your questions in the comments below, not just for us, but for others walking this path alongside you. You never know who you might inspire. And if you want to continue exploring the hidden truths, sacred mysteries, and ancient wisdom waiting to be rediscovered, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This is just one chapter. There are many more pages to turn together. Your presence here matters. So thank you truly for walking this far with us. We'll see you in the next mystery.